So you do have to scroll down. There's no way of seeing the entire gallery, right? Okay. Well, you can. Olivier taught me how to adjust the balance of the. So you do have to scroll down. There's no way of seeing the entire gallery, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, you can. Olivier taught me how to adjust the balance of the. So you do have to scroll down. There's no way of seeing the entire gallery, right? Yeah. But you can. Olivier taught me how to adjust the balance of the. So you have to scroll down. There's no way of seeing the entire gallery. Yeah. But you can. Olivier taught me how to adjust the balance of the. Something's wrong, Techie. Where are you, Techie? So Techie.
Yeah, I got it.
It sounds like we're looping. There's a glitch in the matrix.
Okay.
Olivier, you're going to have to start charging for this little technical side advice.
Yeah, I got it.
You got
Sounds
it?
like we're looping.
Okay, good.
There's a glitch in the matrix.
Someone has a speaker on.
No,
Olivier,
Kamal,
you're going to have to start
Kamal,
charging for this
that's the
little technical
YouTube.
side advice.
Oh,
You
It
got
sounds like
it?
we're looping.
Okay, good.
There's a glitch in the matrix.
someone has a speaker on.
No,
Olivier,
Kamal,
you're going
that,
to have to start
Kamal,
charging for this
that's
little
the
technical
YouTube.
side advice.
Oh,
you
It
got
sounds like we're
it?
looping.
Okay, Kamal, I just took the YouTube off.
yeah. I see. It's the integration's not.
It says that it's still live, even though I took it off of the thing. So
Yeah.
we'll see. Either way. Okay, are we ready?
Hi, Martha. The other Martha Valdez, ¿qué tal?
Okay, let's get started.
Hello. See you.
It is. Absolutely.
So welcome, everybody. Thank you for being with us tonight at our second virtual soiree, a mindful evening of gratitude. And thank you for being here to celebrate our accomplishments this year. So my name is Sandy Scalani. I'm the Executive Director of Mindful Kids Miami. And before we begin, I would like to take a moment and acknowledge a very special guest that we have here with us tonight, founder and former director of Mindful Kids Miami, Valerie York Zimmerman. Thank you so much, Valerie, for your years of service and for bringing such a jewel like this organization into our community. It's been such a rock. So it's
See how you've grown and what you're doing. So congratulations to all of you for all the good work that's so important.
Thank you. So it's fitting that our theme is gratitude this year, as we have so much to be thankful for. These past 20 months have really tested our small organization like none other. And it was really through the steadfast dedication of supporters like you and our committed staff, instructors, and volunteers that we not only survived, but we found new ways to pivot and reach new ambitious goals that we're very excited to tell you about later in the show. So this year we have provided workshops to 1,851 participants and our signature programs to 621 people in 32 courses. And our numbers are upward trending again after this kind of pandemic dip that we had, which is a wonderful sign, a very encouraging sign. So as for the show, there's an hour and a half ahead of us. We are going to be giving two honors tonight, our Ambassador of Mindfulness and one for our Outstanding Mindfulness Champion. With the help of our local farm to table partners at Sacred Space, we will take you on a behind the scenes look at a mindful approach to dining. For those of you that purchase the gift bag delivery, We will close the evening with a guided artisan chocolate and wine tastings, and at which time you're free to, unmute and interact and with your guides and with each other. And so we invite you to turn your video on so we can be present with each other in the room, and also be aware that this event is being recorded. So maybe you don't want your video on. Finally, at any time during the event, if you would like to donate, you can scan this QR code right here in my screen. So that will also take you to our Give Butter fundraising platform page, which is where most of you signed on to get your tickets. And that will be posted in the chat as well. So now I would like to introduce you to our program director, Dory Bambanaste, who will lead us in a brief arrival practice.
Thank you, Sandy. Hi, everyone. Welcome. So let's welcome ourselves to this present moment. And I do just want to share that mindfulness and gratitude have such a beautiful friendship. They're very interwoven. And I'm going to be guiding you in a brief gratitude body scan. And just know that there is no forcing of feelings of appreciation or gratitude. This is more like an invitation or reflection and an opportunity to just spend a little time with our body just as it is in this present moment. So if you'd like, allowing your eyes to close or just softening your gaze, bringing your attention to where you feel your breath the most vividly. The breath is always here. The body knows how to breathe. And what we're doing is simply noticing the sensations of the breath. Guiding your attention down through the body and bringing the attention to both feet. So we're not trying to make anything in particular happen, but simply allowing sensation to be our gateway to this present moment. So noticing the sensations at your feet, the heels through the toes, the tops, the sides, deeper in. And now considering what these feet allow you to do on a regular basis. Walking, standing, toes help us balance. And only if it feels appropriate for you, quietly to yourself or out loud, we can say thank you. Bringing attention to both legs, the lower legs, the knees, and the upper legs. Noticing sensations, noticing the absence of sensations. You might sense the sensation of pants or clothing on your legs. Contact of the seat. Noticing whatever sensations are here just as they are. And then if it's appropriate for you, considering what your legs do for you on a daily basis, allowing us to sit, stand, walk, dance, and saying, thank you. Bringing the attention to the torso, the front, the back, the sides, deeper in the organs. Our vital organs are housed here. Sensing whatever is the most prominent sensation to sense. It might be the sensation of breathing. Taking a moment to just recall what this area of the body does for us on a regular basis. Not having to think of breathing, not having to beat our own hearts, digestion. It's appropriate saying, thank you. Bringing the attention to the arms and the hands. Noticing if you feel pulsing, temperature. Bringing to mind what the arms and hands do for us on a daily basis. Allowing us to hug and hold, to carry, to express ourselves. And if you'd like, saying thank you. Bringing attention to the neck and the head. And on the face, including the mouth, the nose, the eyes, the entire face, the ears, the top, the back, the sides of our head. So many things this area does for us: seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting. Deeper within, our mind allows us to process all of these senses. If it feels right, saying thank you. Expanding your attention to include the entire body from head to toe, front and back, side to side. Holding this whole body in your awareness. And if it feels right, saying thank you. I'd like to end with a quote by Pema Chodron. It's also helpful to realize that this very body that we have, that's sitting right here, right now, with its aches and its pleasures, is exactly what we need to be fully human, fully awake, and fully alive. Thank you. We're coming to the end of this practice. So welcome again.
Thank you, Dory, for this wonderful practice. Yeah. Thank you to this body, the only one we have from cradle to death. And so I'm Olivier de Lavalette, the president of the board of Mindful Kids Miami. And I too want to express gratitude to Valerie York Zimmerman, who was my first teacher, who actually made me discover mindfulness almost 8 years ago, and who has helped me come down this path. So thank you very much, Valerie. Rapidly, what does Mindful Kids do? Mindful Kids was created to bring the benefits of mindfulness to the children of the community of South Florida, or South Miami, South Florida, really. And we do it mostly by actually working with people who actually serve children. And I'm just going to say educators at large, but in the category of educators, you have teachers, therapists, counselors, staff, administration, early childhood personnel who work with children. Working with educators has enabled us to scale and actually reach more children. One embodied teacher will actually reach hundreds of kids during the day, which would be extremely difficult and significantly more costly to actually do as an organization. We've been working on a partnership with Miami-Dade County Public Schools for 6 years now, training their teachers and their educators. We have partnered with the Children's Trust to actually train the personnel, the educators who work with in the early child care centers as well for the past few years now. And that's been something new to do, was actually being able to bring mindfulness to the children very early on. And we've also been working with community service organizations who work with children, like Lotus House, who is the largest shelter, who's working with women and children who have been, really terribly treated by life, and companies like, or community organization like Urgent Inc. And so don't really want to talk about Mindful Kids so much. So before I just want to jump into the why are we here tonight? We're really here tonight to deliver the Ambassador of Mindfulness Award. And what is that about? It's really finding somebody in our community who has been instrumental in bringing mindfulness to the community. And of course, mindfulness should always be remembered as heartfulness. If you hear mindfulness and just paying attention without the qualities of the heart, without kindness, without compassion, I always say in my trainings that in Asian languages where these traditions have originated, mind and heart is the same word. And so mindfulness, whenever you hear that word, hear heartfulness, hear kindness, hear compassion. And so it's about finding somebody in the community who has brought these qualities to the community with kindness and compassion. And it is, Amishi, who is this year's recipient, follows in the footsteps of very famous people. Alberto Carvalho, who was our first recipient, who is the superintendent of the schools, Miami Public Schools. David Lawrence Jr., who has worked all his life to the better treatment of children. And Scott Rogers, who works with law students and who has been a co-founder with Amishi of the U Mindfulness, I can call it organization. And who has really dedicated himself to bringing mindfulness to students, to the community, and who has been working now with the military. So Amishi is kind of like the gem in her own backyard. She is the professor of psychology at I won't bore you with all the great details of her life, but she's trained. She's got a PhD at UC Davis. And she has actually been working with young people, older people, and really lately seeing and doing the research. What can mindfulness bring to everyone? And lately working with soldiers before they're deployed, after they're deployed. How do you bring the benefits of mindfulness to people who are actually in danger and who have to make decisions with all clear seeing, as much clarity of the mind as they can, and with as much attention as they can? So with no further ado, Amishi, you're going to speak to us about your latest book, Peak Mind, of course. And it's such a great pleasure. I met you when I came here about 7 years ago, and it's been such a pleasure working with you and seeing you have such an impact on this, on our environment, and bringing the science to explain the benefits of mindfulness. So with no further ado, Amishi, welcome.
Thank you so much. Yes, I remember that, Olivier. In fact, we met in, I think, Valerie York Zimmerman's home. So that's a nice memory. And it's wonderful to have Valerie here too. I wanted to just begin by really thanking everybody for being here tonight, and not just from the point of view of receiving this award, which I'm really grateful to be receiving, but just for being here, for supporting this topic and this amazing organization. And I really mean it. I mean, to me, Mindful Kids Miami is a gem in this community and so very needed. So I want to just commend you on the organization and what you're doing. And I want to do whatever I can to empower you to keep going in the productive and wonderful ways that you are. So what I thought I'd do in the few minutes we have together, even though Olivier just mentioned, mindfulness is not just about paying attention, and I agree, but it happens to be the case that attention is the topic that I study in my lab, and it's actually the topic of this book I've just written, Peak Mind. So I wanted to say a little bit about the topic of attention, and really, if you'll indulge me a bit, give you a little bit of the journey of what brought me to mindfulness from the topic of attention. And it's also not lost on me. In fact, my heart was sort of filled up reflecting back in preparing for tonight, thinking about how much my own children, my own kids, had to do with this journey I've taken from attention, studying it in my lab, to studying mindfulness in my lab. So that's what I'd like to spend the few minutes I have with you talking about. So let's just begin by talking about attention. And I wanted to just start by saying, oftentimes I'll talk about attention as the brain's boss. It's the thing that actually determines the way the rest of the brain functions. And it may sound like a grandiose statement, but really what we pay attention to is our life. It makes up the moment-to-moment experience of our life. In addition to having whatever the content of our attention is, recalibrating everything that happens in terms of information processing in the brain. So we cannot underestimate the power of this particular brain system. Now, of course, we know in the context of education that attention is incredibly important. The attention of the administration and the school itself, the attention of the teachers themselves, and of course the attention of the students. But when we think about attention, we can also think of it as like a fuel, as like a resource that we need in order to drive so many other important and complex functions. So I want to talk about 3 of those functions and really dig in a little bit. So the first important thing that attention fuels in some sense is our capacity to think, and related to that, our capacity to think and learn. And just to reflect back on the last time you actually had a thought, right? It might be right now you're having a thought. What are you actually doing in that moment? There's some information that's getting more privileged prioritization in your mind right now. And then that content, that idea, for example, is going to kind of go from one point to another as your thought deepens. But in addition to just thinking and the proliferation of ideas, what we need our attention for is to deliberate between ideas, right? To make decisions. And importantly, we need it to learn, to receive new information from our environment, from the people that are aiming to teach us, from our friends and our family members. We're learning all the time. None of that would be possible if we didn't have this capacity to pay attention. So thinking is one sort of broad category, and a lot of research has been done on the importance of attention for thinking. But another thing we need our attention for, and this may surprise some of you, is we need our attention to actually feel. And what I mean by that is to truly have emotion experienced in our mind and our body, whether that emotion is beauty, joy, humor, or sadness. Whatever it is, we need to be attentive to that emotion for it to fully take shape in our mind and our body. And we also need attention to regulate our emotions. If we cannot pay attention, we won't be able to ensure that the expression of our emotion is appropriate. And we know that sometimes younger children and sometimes adults have problems ensuring that their expression of emotion is appropriate for the context that they're in. So thinking, feeling, and then the last important thing that attention helps with, and there's probably, I could go on and on, but I want to just stick to 3, is connecting. And I love that tonight's theme is gratitude, because connecting also requires our attention. And what I mean by that is being able to sort of take this capacity to focus and direct it toward other people, to actually take their perspective, to empathize with them, to have a shared view of what's going on, to have a shared what we'd call mental model, so that we can say in some sense we're on the same page when we're talking about things. And, the other aspect that I think is quite important is to lead each other. And if we cannot connect, we cannot lead. And in some sense, all of us, everybody listening to my voice right now, is a leader in some domain or aspect of their lives. So I think that just understanding that attention is not some sort of side project or some kind of cold cognitive system, but it's actually the fuel that allows us to do so much more. That's, I think, quite important. And then to say that in order to do these complex functions, attention, which is essentially the success story of our human evolution, is divided up into 3 main kind of systems. And I want to just say a word about each of these systems. So one way we can think about our attention, and it's kind of the way I've been using it so far, is the word focus. So we can direct the brain's resources toward a particular kind of information. Right now, hopefully it's the screen and listening to my voice, or it's the delicious chocolate or the glass of wine, whatever you choose. But you have a focus for what you're doing right now. And I often use the metaphor of a flashlight for that focus. So it's like if you were in a darkened room, if you had a flashlight, it'd be very handy. And whatever it is that flashlight would point to, you'd get privileged information about what's coming in. Very useful. But another way of paying attention is quite the opposite of that narrowing and selecting aspect. It's broad and receptive. And the metaphor I like to use here is it's like a floodlight. And I've got a floodlight above my garage, and anytime there's motion, it all of a sudden goes on. Unlike the floodlight is broad, it's receptive. It's allowing whatever's happening in the moment to happen. It's not privileging any particular thing. This is something that you might experience when you're driving down the road and you might see a flashing yellow light, maybe by a school during, pickup and drop off times. The way we make our attention in those moments is to be vigilant, attentive, broadly speaking, so that whatever happens, we're ready to respond appropriately. Very different than this sort of narrowing aspect. And then finally, the third way we can think about our attention is like a juggler. And this is something we call executive control. It is really the manager of our attention to ensure that our goals and our behavior align. And I call it a juggler because it really is about keeping sort of all the balls in the air, all the requirements that we have in the moment. We want to make sure we're attending to all of those. But just like sort of the executive of a company, this system's job is not to do each individual thing, but to just sort of oversee. And oftentimes it's just overseeing what that flashlight and floodlight are doing. So I wanted to describe all of these systems. Well, the first thing to say is, why did I come up with these terms, flashlight, floodlight, juggler? I'll tell you honestly, they come from talking to my children about my work. Because if you think about brain systems of attention, it can be kind of dry. And oftentimes my kids would ask me, Mommy, what are you doing in the lab all day? Because I'm gone quite often. Now my children are older, 15 and 19. But in those early days, they wanted to know what I was doing. And so it took me a while to kind of think about how can I explain to them what these systems are, what I do, why they matter. And I think these metaphors, so please take them, use them if you find them helpful, because explaining to children why our attention matters and the different ways it can function can be very empowering for them. To know, oh, my flashlight's not in the right spot, get it back. Oh, the juggler dropped the balls. Whatever it is that you use in the playful way as educators, I just want to encourage you to think about how these different metaphors of attention might be useful. So that was one kind of heartening moment. I was like, oh yeah, I came up with these in talking to my own children. But actually what I want to do now is, I hope that this sort of helped as a little bit of a journey of the kinds of things that I think about, the importance and utility of attention, and how attention is organized in terms of brain systems, because each of those different metaphors I gave you actually has a brain system associated with it. And all three of these brain systems ends up that they're quite robustly and beneficially impacted by mindfulness training. So I'm not just mentioning them because they're interesting, but they're actually the things that end up being the target of a lot of mindfulness practices and are strengthened by mindfulness practice. But I wanted to take a little bit of a journey in the last few minutes I have, just to give you a sense of what even led me to being an attention researcher and then moving toward mindfulness. And again, this happens to be something that's related to my children. So, I got to rewind way back to 2003 when my son was quite little. At that point, my daughter hadn't been born yet. And, this is a time in my life when I was a new mom who's not even 3 years old yet. We were living in Philadelphia at the time. I was a professor at the University of Pennsylvania. My husband was in grad school. We bought a 100-year-old fixer-upper, and I had just landed this high-power tenure-track position and was starting and running my own lab. And so outwardly, all these things were just exactly the way I wanted my life to be. A powerful, engaging profession, a wonderful new home that we get to work on, a beautiful child, and an engaged spouse that I adored. But it ended up that it was a little bit of a lot. And I think I'm not alone and I'm looking at Dory and her beautiful child who I get to see on Facebook every now and then. But it's a lot to manage little children and have a full-time career and have all the kinds of pressures and realities of what that is. So the episode that I want to share with you is just one night after a long day at the lab. I come home, as I had really committed to doing, and I had my little boy in my lap, and we get, it was a commitment that I had to read a book to him every night. And so he was snuggled in my lap, ready for bed. We picked out his favorite book, one I'd probably read, 500 times. And he loved it. It was a one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish. Parents probably know that book. And of course, I'm like, yep, happy to read it. Sit down in my lap, and we're opening the book. We're going through page by page. I'm reading it to him. He seems happy. And all of a sudden, at some point, he takes his tiny little hand and he puts it on top of the page and kind of looks up at me and says, "What's a wump?" And I had no idea what he was talking about. I had no idea. It was like, no clue. And I kind of did one of those things that I know teachers know about. And as a professor, I know undergrads do this, like kind of sneaking on the page, like, what is a wump? It probably says something on the page about it. And I saw, okay, yeah, wump is a word that I probably just said. But I had no memory of it, and I had no idea what it was. That to me was problematic. So of course, I kind of salvaged the situation. He didn't really know anything was all that wrong. Got him to bed. He's snuggled in bed. He's fine. But I'm reflecting on what happened, and it was a real wake-up call for me. What it highlighted to me is that I was there, but I was not there. I was on autopilot. And this is the thing that I wanted to be doing in my life. This was something that was important to my heart, to be connected to my child. And even though I wanted to be there, I wasn't. So when I reflected on what I was doing, instead, I realized I was mind wandering. I was in the lab, or I was, thinking about the future. I was nowhere in my mind, in my attention, in that moment. And so I scoured the literature, the next couple of weeks. I'm like, there's got to be something. I study attention. I should be able to find an answer. What do you do when you don't have hold of your attention? And I came up empty. There was nothing I could find that would really guide me as a researcher on protocols that I could put myself through as an experiment of one to help my own mind. And thankfully, really thankfully, I heard from a dear colleague, Richie Davidson, who had come to give a lecture, the term mindfulness. And it kind of surprised me. It's not a topic. Mindfulness meditation is not a topic I'd ever heard about. And I certainly hadn't heard about it in the context of a neuroscience lecture. But I opened up enough to be able to check it out, started practicing, and everything sort of shifted. None of the demands had changed, but I became embodied in my life. I became able to actually see the expression on my child's face, or notice a worried look in my husband's eyes, or deal with the reality of what it means to have a busy life and a professionally engaged life with a little more heartfulness, as Olivier was saying, and kindness toward myself in a self-supported manner. And that came through my own mindfulness practice. So I was reflecting on all of this to say, if only Mindful Kids Miami had been around there, as they are now, is such a jewel in our community to offer these practices to parents like me who want to be there for their children, who want to be attentive to their upbringing, to the wonderful teachers in our community who know what it means to feel scattered and who don't want that. They don't want that as their profession, and they don't want that in their personal lives. So I just wanted to mention that I'm so glad, fast forward to 2021, we have this wonderful organization. You do wonderful things. I'm grateful for that. And the last thing I'll say about the research is that you're not only offering mindfulness practices, but the kinds of programs you're offering with mindfulness-based stress reduction, mindfulness-based compassion training, you're offering things that we now know from the research side are the gold standard programs that there is now a lot of evidence to support the benefits of. So benefits for not only attention, but for other aspects of what the mind does: reduction in stress, improvements in mood. It has benefits for the body. Things like inflammatory disease symptoms are reduced. Cardiovascular disease is actually, a lot of the symptoms are remediated. Chronic pain can actually be managed much more effectively. And it has benefits for relationships. The quality of relationships improves in the context of marital relationships, family relationships, workplace relationships, and even team cohesion in complex environments like military units, like as Olivier was mentioning, we study in my lab. So this is all to say, mindfulness is so important. It's so important to me. It's so important to, thankfully, all of you that are listening to my voice right now. And going from attention to mindfulness, I talked about the value of attention as being needed for our ability to think, to feel, and to connect. But with mindfulness, we can think better, frankly. We can feel more deeply, and we can actually regulate our emotion better, and we can connect more meaningfully. So I just wanted to say thank you. It really means a lot to me to receive this recognition from Mindful Kids Miami. And please keep going. I love what you're doing, and I will continue to support you in every way I can. And finally, I'll just say thanks for your attention.
Thank you so much, Amishi. It's always such a pleasure to listen to you. You put things in such a clear, concise, and lively way, which I find just so engaging. But yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for the research, because it's always important to know that what we're doing is actually based in research. It's not just a belief system. It's actually something that we know really makes a difference. It makes a difference in our lives as we are practitioners, but it makes also a difference in the lives of people we come across with. So an immense thanks, immense gratitude for your work, and immense gratitude for your friendship. And thank you. Yeah, just thank you so much.
Thank you, Amishi, for such a beautiful and moving address. I'm Ian Reese, co-chairperson of the Philanthropy Committee of Mindful Kids. And I want to thank the entire committee, not only for their hard work and creativity, but for their camaraderie. It's been wonderful working with them. And I want to give a special thanks to my co-chairperson, Renee Lopez Cantera, or Renee LC, as she's also known, for being the queen of marketing and networking. She's truly incredible. Also, I'd like to deliver thanks from our board of directors to all of you for joining us here tonight and for your support. I'm very appreciative of the board for all they've done over the years to make Mindful Kids the success it is in our community. And lastly, a big shout out to the workhorse of Mindful Kids, our executive director, Sandy Scalaney. Here at Mindful Kids, we believe that mindfulness can be applied to everything that we do throughout our daily lives. When we eat, that includes being aware of the ingredients and in the food and how they impact our minds and bodies, as well as where our food comes from, how the production process impacts our environment, and the conditions that people labor under to bring the food to our table to nourish us. With awareness, we can see how much goes into something as simple as eating each day. And this awareness naturally makes us feel gratitude. Carla Daskal, founder of the Sacred Space and Plant Miami and the owner of Paradise Farms, exemplifies this vision and the practice of conscious living and the power of plant-based healing. The short video we're about to show you from our local community partners, Paradise Farms and Plant Miami, embodies this spirit of mindfulness. Head farmer David Laws manages Paradise Farms with his wife, Daniela. And due to the unique nature of our subtropical climate, David has innovated farming strategies that support organic farming in South Florida. Plant Miami's executive chef, Horatio Rivadera, was a James Beard Award semifinalist for Best Chef South. He and his wife, Veronica Manolisi, at Plant Miami, continue to create innovative plant-based delicacies. You can learn more about the bios of Carla, David, and Horatio on our Give Butter page or on the information sheet that we placed in your goodie bag. Please enjoy as you go behind the scenes with farmer David Laws and chef Horatio Rivadera.
Everything that we are, we owe to the earth. And that's just something to really cherish and to nourish. And that's a prime focus of what we do here at Paradise Farms. I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunity to steward this farm, to be able to work so intimately with the land. Really, within a month of volunteering here back in 2008, I knew that this was going to be my life's work. I couldn't see doing anything else because it's just such a beautiful place, and it really just inspires everyone to do their best here. We're at a crucial moment in human history where we have the answers there in front of us, and what we have to do is execute. Agriculture needs to change, and we see ourselves as pioneers on that change. We employ regenerative agriculture specifically to fight climate change, to benefit the local ecology, and we're also very focused on the social aspect. So we're ensuring a livable wage for our farmers and making sure that everyone's treated justly and with equity. Regenerative farming is a way of coming at agriculture where our main mission is to give back more than we take. We're designing all our processes to feed the soil and then feed the plants, which in turn feed us. It's very much the opposite of conventional extractive agriculture. We are really focused on, of course, organic inputs, but then going beyond that, how much carbon can we sequester? How much benefit can we be to the greater ecosystem and the greater world? Our produce, mushrooms and microgreens, are harvested at the peak of freshness. Then the same day, they're off to chefs across Miami, including Horacio at Plant. He takes our product to the next level and really makes it shine.
Our food mostly is locally sourced. We feel like for us it's very important to develop a menu based on what we can get over here. So Paradise Farm is our sister business over here who bring a lot of our microgreens, a lot of edible flowers, our tropical fruits. And now for this season we're gonna bring a lot of our greens, a lot of our roots, baby carrots, turnips, radishes, different items that we're gonna bring to our menu. For some people, microgreens feel like only a garnish. For us, it's a source of another nutrient content for our dishes. The nutrient content in the microgreen is very high since we don't let the plants develop all the way through, so we just cut it in the moments the nutrients are very high, and then we use them raw in our dishes. The cheese box, first it's our signature dish through the last few years. When you get your box, the first thing you're gonna notice when you open it is gonna be the strong aromas of the truffles and the smoking aromas of the cheddar cheese. There is like a mixed match of flavors and textures. And then you have the crunchiness and a little bit of sweetness of our mixed nuts. And then you have our homemade papaya jam and without any sugar. So you're gonna be surprised like, oh, this tastes so good and it tastes so sweet, but it's the sweetness, natural sweetness from the papaya. And also to finish, to add a little more nutrient content to your dish, you're gonna find sprouts, microgreens. Our cheeses is not only flavor, it's not only look, it's a lot of nutrients, it's a lot of probiotics, you know, it's a lot of things that's gonna make you feel much better compared to traditional cheese. So all this time we spend to make our recipe is all tired of the way we're feeling, you know, the way we are like try to make other people feel it. This is the way we say thank you for trying our cheeses, and we want to make you happy when you eat this.
What's really striking for me watching this video is Farmer David and Chef Horacio's, oh, so sorry, there's the baby. And Chef, babe, come here for a second. Chef Horacio's just amount of gratitude and mindfulness in which they do their work. And it really is a labor of love. What's so striking is that that's such a basic necessity, this foundational need, eating, that most of us tend to, I'm sorry guys, most of us tend to do it while we're multitasking. We tend to not really give it that much attention. And the beauty of what Chef Horacio and Farmer David were speaking to, and the amount of intentionality, the just embodiment of presence that they put and the meaning that they put into not only growing the food, making the food, and then eating the food. It just might bring us to reflect on if we're multitasking through some of the most basic needs in our life, what else might we be missing out on? What moments in our life might we just be passing over? But this definitely makes it more exciting for the food that we're about to taste. Thank you.
Thank you, Dory. And hi. With that, I want to say if you have the gift bag and the cheeses, feel free to eat them now that you've seen that wonderful video. And if you want to know more about our sponsors, I have linked to all of their websites on our Give Butter donation page that you got the tickets on. And I think Olivier will probably put that in the chat again. So if you want to visit that again, and also you can just go there by scanning this QR code. So thank you to our sponsors. Again, Sacred Space, Plant Miami, and Paradise Farms, absolutely wonderful partners that we have. Also, Anthony R. Abraham Foundation, Moment Beverage, which is Drink Your Meditation, Simply Focused Design, South Miami Hospital, EKN Digital, Vecinos Market, Wake Up Parties and Events, and Cow Chocolates, and our special donors, Jill Rappaport Reese and Dr. Ian Reese, Olivier and Cheryl De Lavalette, Michael Cicerano, and Dr. Ashwin Mehta. Thank you a million times over to all our sponsors. And I am excited now to tell you about our latest program. So at the beginning of the summer, we had an incredible opportunity to partner with the Miami Heat, Florida Blue, and Miami-Dade Public Schools on programming to help teachers and students when they return to the schoolhouse in the fall. So resiliency was the priority for our district, and I think the state as well. So what we did was design the Mindfulness Champions Initiative, which was a training for designated advocates of mindfulness in the schools. During the training, champions draft an implementation plan to bring mindfulness into their schools. They also participate in a mindful educator network through a monthly meetup and regular group practices and an email group. So over the course of the summer, we've trained 354 mindfulness champions. That's one mindfulness champion for every single school in Miami-Dade County, which is an incredible, incredible feat. The champions are liaisons in the schools, so their presence facilitates numerous programs and activities related to mindfulness. And many of them have also returned to participate in some of our longer training programs afterwards. So I'd like to read you an example of the impact of the program. This was sent in by one of our mindfulness champions and a teacher at Ethel Koger Beckham K-8 Center. She wrote, "Our greatest mindfulness accomplishment has been reading the story Ishi the Rock by Akiko Yabuki. A YouTube link was shared with all classroom teachers, which then prompted discussion questions. Yesterday, we had the privilege of the author visiting our school virtually to share her story behind Ishi and have a book reading. The whole school, each classroom and teacher were connected live on Zoom to have a mindful moment with Mrs. Akiko Yabuki. Her story inspired and touched many teachers and students. Her reading prompted teachers to have conversations with their students. Teachers asked students how they deal with anxiety and what helps them feel better. Teachers shared ideas on what makes them feel better and suggested ways students can stop those worry monsters with mindfulness. But I haven't shared the best part just yet. Each student, teacher, and staff member at the school received their own white rock. With this rock, I encouraged them to make their own Ishi. From the youngest child to the oldest person at the school, all were prompted to simply place a happy face or creatively give it a splash of color. Next week, each bag of personalized decorated rocks will be collected. My intention is to place every rock on our very own mindfulness path. Thanks to the help of our custodial staff, we have the path laid out, and with the help of some volunteers, we will place our special rocks on the path and will dedicate it to being mindful. Whenever a child or adult at school is feeling anxious, stressed, overwhelmed, worried, or just having a bad day, everyone will be welcome to walk by our very own mindfulness path. And Mrs. Akiko Yabuki mentions in her book, nature has magic. So taking a moment outside and being present of this moment will help provide healthier hearts and minds at our school. So just incredible impact one person can make on an entire school. It was evident that the champions truly were committed to transforming their classrooms, their schools, and themselves. So much so that we decided to dedicate an annual award to recognize their hard work and dedication. This year's outstanding mindfulness champion is Martha Villarreal Cox, teacher at Ruth K. Broad K through 8. Since becoming the mindfulness champion for her school, she's really gone above and beyond. She's been asked to prepare for a press conference about the program. She was interviewed by the Miami Heat when they visited her school, and asked by Principal Saperstein, who is here supporting her. And thank you so much for your support, Principal. Asked to deliver a 3-hour training to the faculty at her school, which we were happy to help her with. See, and I got choked up all 3 times that I practiced this. But Ruth K. Broad has suffered greatly this year, being one of the schools most impacted by the Surfside collapse. And no matter how challenging the tasks before her seemed, Martha did her best to bring mindfulness to the service of caring for a stressed and grieving faculty and student body. And for that, Martha, Mindful Kids Miami thanks you and is honored to present you with the award of Outstanding Mindfulness Champion.
Thank you, Sandy. As Ms. Saperstein knows, I do not like to speak in public, but I'm going to read, and I accept the award. I accept the award with honor and gratitude for the acknowledgement of being an advocate on mindfulness to my school. I'm very fortunate that the administrators, Mr. Saperstein and Mr. Sosa, fully support me in bringing mindfulness to the Babka family. Now I get emotional, Sandy. We face difficult times returning to school after a community has lost many lives due to the Champlain Towers collapse and the COVID aftermath. Our students face emotional and academic challenges. Several students' parents have shared that they are getting divorced, and another student has lost her mom to cancer. I wanted to help my students and the school by sharing what has equipment, with better focus, self-care, and mindful communication skills. I have taken mindfulness strategy reduction program numerous times with Mindfulness Kids Miami. And this past summer, I joined Mindfulness Champion Initiative. Practicing mindfulness has helped me to cope with the stress and being aware of my feelings, thoughts, and body. It helps me to live in the present moment instead of worrying about the past or future. I also have better classroom management. My students feel more respected by me. As a result, I have few discipline problems, and they have improved the peer relationship, getting along with each other, helps them to focus on their academics. This year, you mentioned it, so I'm going to skip that. We have Ariana Zarate that presented, she had a professional development to the faculty and also a workshop for our 5th graders. I wish to see Mindfulness Kids Miami and Mindfulness Champions Initiative to continue to grow and to support our community by training teachers, students, and parents. I want to thank Sandy Scalani, Executive Director, Dory Bambanaste, Program Director, Adriana Moreno Zarate, Olivier Delavante, Mindfulness Kids Miami, Mr. Sosa, Mr. Saperstein, for all your support. I cannot be successful advocating for mindfulness for my school without you. It really does take a village to raise and educate a child. To conclude, I would like to end with a quote by Thich Nhat Hanh. The most precious gift we can offer others is our attention. When mindfulness embraces those we love, they bloom like flowers. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for the gift and the award and recognition, and you have done a wonderful job.
No, thank you, Marta, for the fantastic work that you do, for having faced the trauma and grief, and with such heartfulness, bringing comfort to your kids and to the people you work with. And so the gratitude is for you for the fantastic work you do every day. So muchas gracias. I want to work and share with you some of the impact of what we do. And I could quote the research. Amishi started by saying, there is real evidence today that the impact and the benefit of mindfulness is quite high. We published, actually, with the help of David Lee, Dr. Lee, we actually published, Mindful Kids Miami and published a study we did with the teachers of Miami-Dade Public School. And the summary of that study is that mindfulness stress reduction actually helped teachers reduce stress, reduce depression, reduce anxiety, reduce burnout, reduce sleep disorders. It helped them increase sense of self, sense of connection to others. When you say that, and that was in an 8-week program, so you can imagine the power of this practice. And just think about it for if you have children or even if you have colleagues. Imagine the quality of the interaction you can have if when you're actually interacting, you're less stressed, less anxious, less depressed, less burned out, and you have slept. Just imagine how that will impact the people around you. It's a simple, it's a very simple question. And most of us know when people are present. Martha said, quoted Thich Nhat Hanh, I think any one of us can really tell when someone is actually present, listening fully to what we have to say. And this is what mindfulness does. It helps you be present to your life. John Kabat-Zinn always says it's the good, the bad, and the ugly. But the reality of our lives, it has good, it has bad, and it has ugly. But not being present is actually not helping. And so mindfulness can really help. So that's the impact. I just wanted to read a few comments from the class that just finished last week. And these are answers our teachers, actually, and counselors that have said after taking the class. Absolutely, this class is a life-changing course. I'm very grateful that I had the opportunity to participate in it. Yes, I have learned to take care of myself. Yes, compassion towards me is something I'm taking with me. When I stop and let myself be here now, I realize that all the talk about not being enough or good enough is just a story. Creating that space through compassion and awareness is my greatest takeaway from the class. And one of them said, I took this course to learn how to manage my stress level and how to be more mindful at all times for myself, my family, and my students. I have learned so much, and I am implementing practices not only at home, but when I am teaching. I have seen an improvement in the way I react with some situations, especially when it is something that is not under my control. Simple examples of what this practice does. This is the impact that mindfulness can have on our lives. And when it has an impact on our lives, it has an impact on the lives of the people with whom we interact. And this is what we try to do, to bring mindfulness to teachers so that when they interact with children, they actually have a better interaction with them. So again, Martha, thank you so much for the work you do. This is really, I wish we could bring this to all of the teachers. If I were to say what's one of my objectives that keeps me awake at night, well, actually never awake at night, I sleep very well, but one of the objectives I have is how can we bring this practice to the 22,000 teachers of Miami-Dade and to the numerous parents, educators that are actually working with children every day. So thank you. Thank you so much. Now, I also want to thank Deborah Abbas, who was one of our sponsors tonight. So Deborah, thank you so much also for helping us reach, bring our mission to the schools and to the kids. So now we're going to do something slightly different. Well, I have to remind you to donate. So please remember, you can donate now. It would be really appreciated. And to help you along the donation, I actually want to introduce Ricardo Trios. So we mentioned earlier that mindfulness is not just paying attention while sitting on a meditating cushion. It's actually paying attention to our lives, to what we eat, to what we buy, to what we do. It's a systematic layer of ethics on our lives. Ethics on what we consume, what we do, and what we eat. We saw this very well in what Sacred Heart does and how they produce ethically with the farm. Well, now actually we're going to look at a different part of production, but that brings the same type of ethics, the same type of attention to fairness, equity, equitable trade to chocolate. So it is my privilege to introduce Ricardo Trios, the founder of Cacao Chocolate. He founded it in 2009. And he have to say, he has many titles, many awards. He's done fantastic things. But my favorite is his title. He has the most mouth-watering title you can think of. There are CEOs, CFOs, CMOs, COOs, but he is the CCO, the Chief Chocolate Officer. And I have to say that is great. So Ricardo, with no further ado, welcome. Thank you for being here with us tonight. And let's enjoy this chocolate.
Oh, thank you very much, Oliver. It is great to be here. Thanks for the invitation. And that title always brings smiles to someone who actually see the business cards or read the emails, that's for sure. And that's a great way to break the ice. Breaking the ice. Also, thanks for speaking about mindfulness and the ethics in the chocolate industry. This is something that we can go for a minute or so. We can talk about that, but that will be after we taste the chocolates. And why do I say this? It's because what you're about to taste, it is craft artisanal chocolate. All of them are made here in Miami. We do something that's called from bean to bar, which means that we actually import the raw material, the raw cacao beans, and we produce everything here locally. Also, we do some experimentations locally, growing cacao locally here as well. Let's take a look at what you guys received. When you open your chocolate tasting kit, you have 3 different flavor bars. You can see and read in each one of the bars, there is an origin, why we do this. And when you walk to the supermarket, when you walk to the pharmacy, and this is a great way to help you understand, because I get approached from many people telling me that they're chocoholics. And for me, it is always a door opener to turn them into chocolate aficionados or chocolate connoisseurs. Okay? Chocoholics, someone that loves chocolate, but eats just any chocolates. From this moment, and after this tasting, I guarantee you will remember this forever. And you have a better judgment, that's for sure. That's what we have this year. The first part of this little card is actually showing you where cacao grows. That breaks a little bit of the myth about European chocolates. Nothing against that, okay? But it's more about the techniques, not necessarily the approach that they grow, because obviously for weather conditions, cacao is a tropical fruit. They will never be able to grow that unless there are greenhouses, but it's not cost effective and can take a lot of time. On the other side, this is what we're going to be using a lot today. Okay, if you have a car, this is our tasting wheel. I know we have a wine tasting following this, but basically, if you've done any tasting before, there's always flavor profiles that you can identify, and with chocolate, you can do the same. So think about this tasting as a wine tasting, bourbon, scotch, coffee cupping, maybe cigars. If you're a cigar aficionado, we can do all type of things. What I ask you now to do is, you have 3 different bars, and I wanted to find some balance. So I don't know if everybody is a dark chocolate lover. Dark chocolate is the best one to taste and to educate our clients. But I have a 1 milk chocolate. Let's keep that one on the side. There's a milk chocolate. If you read, it says Costa Rica. Then we have a bar from Peru and a bar from Nicaragua. You may ask why, and what I don't see when I go to the store and buy chocolate, just a chocolate bar, I don't see that, because we do something that is really cool. I mean to actually respect every single one of the places that we source cacao from. We decide to make a chocolate bar from every single farm. That way, there's a uniqueness. It's called single bean or single origin. You can find that in coffee as well. You can find it in wines, a single grape wine, single malt scotch, or single leaf cigars. So basically, we have plenty of stories to tell, plenty of people that we can talk about. And if you don't cut me off, I can go for a whole weekend talking about the farmers, et cetera, because that's my real passion and what's behind every single piece of chocolate. So with that said, I have a nice proof that how chocolate can be different just based on origins, just based on the artisanal and craft part of that. So I'm going to teach you how to properly taste chocolate now. If you have the bars, let's start from the first one. Keep this handy with you, okay? And what I'm going to do is invite you to use our senses. Let's unwrap this bar. It's for Nicaragua, a place called La Colonia. It's a north part of Nicaragua, north part of Matagalpa, which is the capital city. We unwrap the bar and we're going to use our 5 senses. When we taste chocolate, we use our 5 senses: sight, touch, smell, hear, and taste. As crazy as it sounds, I invite you to open this bar, and the first thing that you do is actually looking at it. All right. The touch part, we remove it from the foil and we can smell. That's going to be your third sense. That smells will bring you back. In food, smell activates your memory, can bring you back to certain states, certain foods that you ate. Fourth sense, just break a piece, put it close to your ear, and break it. It has to make a sound. It has to make a crisp, sharp sound. It's called snap. Snap means when we make the chocolate, it was a liquid stage. Now it's solid and properly shipping, properly delivery service, etc., etc., etc. Last but not least, and this is when you have to have this here. Okay, I'm going to give you hints because, we don't have plenty of time. But what I want you guys to do now, which is the 5th and most important sense, the one that we're looking forward to, it's put a piece of chocolate in your mouth and let it melt slowly. You can actually play around your palate, okay? But don't chew it. Do not chew it. Why I ask you not to chew it? You will miss part of the fun. Ideally, when you do tasting, and I hope you save some for later. These are great with wines, by the way, now that it's Friday night. You can always use room temperature water to clean your palate. What do we get from this bar? All right. Usually I ask for people to participate. You can do it in the chat real quick if you want to. This chocolate bar has notes of red fruits. It has almost like a coffee taste as well. Black tea. You see, people are participating now. I love that. Black tea. Some people may say some prunes, some almost like grapes. The taste of this bar reminds me when you leave an unopened bottle of wine and then you remove the cork. That smell, it's what I do taste. Okay, so I find a lot of the brown and the purple section for this chocolate. Okay, now what raisins, molasses, black tea, absolutely. Now nobody is wrong. That's what I love about this. We all have different palates. And with that said, I'm going to invite you now to save that. But I'm going to prove you what's so unique about craft chocolate. So why don't we do the same? if you have water with you, would be awesome to clean your palate, any type of drink. Why don't we do the same with this 70% from Peru? Because you know what? One of the coolest things is that, yeah, texture, it can be different also from bar to bar. Okay, sometimes we do that on purpose because we want you to taste different things in the bar. The texture of this one from Peru, it's totally different, which, by the way, this is the newest origin cacao chocolates. It's 100% a women-owned farm in Peru. And I would love to hear from you guys. What do you taste when you look at the tasting wheel? Why is that? Because we're still at the research, trying to identify flavors. For me, this bar, it's really cool. I have, speaking about holidays now, this reminds me a lot of the baking a pie, because I can taste some spices, almost like nutmeg, cinnamon, and there's some tartness there that I can say either a green apple kind of tartness, or for me, if you're familiar with tamarind, this is also something that I taste. But I say tamarinds, and there's also people mention cherries there. One of the things that I always like to highlight, and the most important part is, I hope you guys were able to taste the difference. Now, the texture in this one, it's completely different to the other one, and the flavor profile as well. I think this is a brighter type of chocolate. With that said, I mentioned before, the recipe is exactly the same. The same amount of ingredients. What I just changed was farm to farm. Okay, possibilities are endless. One of the things that we like to do is always give the chance to new farms, and I think it is very important. If you follow us online at Cacao Chocolates, you will find that we try to do as many social engagements as possible, especially with the places and the countries that we work with. Okay, so every single piece of chocolate, every single bar, like I said before, there's a story behind it. And now that you know how to properly taste chocolate, I encourage you to walk around the supermarket, walk around the place that you find, and you realize that not many of the chocolate bars there, they say where they're coming from. If they don't say that, there is no uniqueness in it. Okay, keep in mind that we're talking about kids. In the cacao industry, the chocolate industry, there's a crazy percentage of kids involved in slavery conditions. There are large chocolate brands, large candy corporations that are taking advantage of farmers on a daily basis. There are hundreds of thousands of farmers that they have never done a chocolate tasting just like the one you just did. Next time you buy chocolates, do your research. Please do not believe in the stamps that are in the chocolate bars that says fair trade, that says, all these type of things, because unfortunately, regulations here in the US, if you use 20% of the ingredients are fair traded, means you can place the stamp there. So cacao can be, sourced under slavery conditions, but still the sugar or any other ingredient can be fair trade, and you can still place the stamp there. Keep that. I'm reachable. I'm gonna write my email there in the chat. The time was limited, but hey, try to eat good chocolates and try to find stories behind every single artisanal product that you guys consume. Because not only you will support a local business, but there are plenty of people behind our back that we can also give back to them. All right. Thank you very much, guys. It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Ricardo. Thank you, Ricardo. And by the way, my wife is saying, why didn't we try the chocolate milk one? So we will continue to try and taste the chocolate milk one. And thank you so much for actually educating us on the standards of what it means to actually really have fair trade. So again, much gratitude for your education.
And Yvonne?
It's a good juice.
With that salt.
And caramel. Am I off mute? Okay, I'm off mute. Thank you so much. First of all, I just wanted to, I'm Yvonne Chen, CEO and co-founder of Vecinos Market. I just wanted to first off thank you everyone, Mindful Kids Miami, for putting together such an amazing program tonight. I think that mindfulness is such a wonderful and critical skill for both children and adults. So it is such a wonderful gift that you are giving back to our community. It is actually a wonderful segue, Ricardo. Thank you for making us chocolate connoisseurs. I need to talk to you and get you on our platform. Just a few quick moments about what Vecinos Market is. Essentially, it is a marketplace that we built during the pandemic, a digital marketplace for local shops in Miami. So we wanted to create a community where residents can support locals. So one thing, you brought up in terms of, socially conscious and mindful, I find that most of the vendors that create their own products and that are on the platform, I mean, they're small entrepreneurs. Most of them created their products because there was something missing from the market that they felt, whether it be skincare, whether it be chocolate, whether it be, something that we consume, they wanted to create something that was less toxic, didn't include as many chemicals, and being really mindful about where it's sourced and how it gets to us. So with that said, you already, there is a pamphlet inside of your program, so you can read more about us. You can find us at vecinosmarket.com, but we also have a amazing program that we're really happy to be supporting Mindful Kids Miami for our Give and Grow program for November. So in here, you can just scan the code. For every single subscriber, we will donate $1 towards the cause. So we're really looking forward to this. It's an ongoing relationship. It's not just for the month of November. So please go ahead, check us out. And without further ado, I wanted to introduce Justin Mullis, who is from Cork Pullers Miami and also Ross Shaw International Importers. So he will be helping us, walking us through the wine that we will be tasting tonight and that we will be enjoying. So thank you again very much for including us, and enjoy.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. And before we really get started with tasting wines, I just want to give Yvonne a big round of applause for everything that she's doing, bringing all of these local artisans together, creating a site where people can find actually locally made, thoughtful products that are sourced, delivered, very fair across the board with everything. And I'm super happy to be a part of it. So thank you, Yvonne. And honestly, I want to segue into a different way. I wasn't really sure exactly what I was getting into tonight. I knew it was going to be a wine tasting. I knew we were going to be pairing chocolates. But honestly, I'm a little overcome with emotion this evening. I feel like I found my tribe in a way. And I just want to say thank you so much for one, being part of this event, but two, for what you're doing with thoughtful kids. I honestly, I live my life by a code that says, be the change you want to see in the world. And I think I hear a lot of that resonated in everything that you're doing also. And in fact, I think you've almost concentrated it into more of a powerful effort. I wish, Miami can be a tough place to live. Sometimes people can be rude, but truth be told, I wish there was more we could do with this, and I'll be for sure signing up for the website afterwards and trying to figure out how I can get more involved, honestly. So I'm happy that I got to meet all of you. Honestly, it's a little bit of a surprise and a shock where I found myself this evening, getting to do great Zoom presentations with winemakers from all over the world, and with different groups and people that have welcomed me into their home to have wine tastings with them. This was definitely one of the most thoughtful Zoom meeting groups that I've done, honestly. So thank you so much for everything that you guys are doing. I'm not just saying that as a part of this. I'm actually like a little choked up as well, especially getting to hear about Surfside. I can see it off my balcony. And I'm not going to harp on that too much, but geez, that was a tough time. So to hear Martha and everything that she's doing, just such a great room full of people. There's only 52 people on this chat, but man, I wish it was thousands of people. I think we could probably use a little bit more of this in the world, and it would probably help out, make things a lot better. And honestly, we could probably use a little bit more of this in the world too, would make everything a lot better also, right? So, again, I'll step off that box for a second and stick back into, why I'm here and what, professionally I do. Importing great wines into the country from all over the world, between France and parts of Latin America and Italy and Spain, I find myself working with this company called Marqueta Riscal, which a lot of you are probably pretty familiar with. Marqueta Riscal has been around since 1858. They're a big winery. You can find some of their other wine tiers even at Publix and Total Wine. But the reason why I wanted to bring the Arienzo in today, it's a smaller production wine. This is a third generation winemaker, a family that's been growing grapes in a really sustainable and thoughtful practice for over 100 years. When Marqueta Riscal was expanding their footprint, they've actually just been rated the #1 winery in all of Europe, not necessarily for scores, but for what they're doing and what they're offering as far as tourism and not to echo what everyone else is saying, but thoughtfulness and the way they plant, the people that they hire. Sustainable in practice is something that's very big in the wine industry now. I know a lot of people in California are striving to be certified sustainable in practice. So it's not just sustainable, making sure that the land is safe. It's not using pesticides. It's not using an overtly amount of chemicals in order to grow this produce. Sustainable in practice is making sure that everyone else that works on the property, that's part of harvesting, part of the farming, growing, and just every aspect that goes into care of the vines is taken care of. So you're going to start to see this term a lot more. It's kind of been branched in France. It's making its way across Europe. It's big in California now, in parts of Washington and Oregon. It's sustainable in practice. So try to keep an eye out for that new designation. It's something within the past 6 years that's become very popular. This wine is good, honestly, right? I mean, Ricardo, thank you so much for those amazing chocolates. I wish more people understood where their food was coming from. And chocolates, the next one I would say is coffee. People probably don't really understand where their coffee beans are coming from a lot of the time, and the amount of slave labor that can go into that, all for the great mighty dollar, just to make as much profit as possible. If you just took the time to realize where your products were being grown and the people behind it and how people were being taken care of, when you go to the cash register, every item that you check through the little button is a vote for the products that you want to see on the shelf and the things that you go out and go for. Wine is the same way. It doesn't necessarily need to be organic, but I'll tell you, most people in the industry now, it might not be certified organic on the label. That's sort of what Richard was saying. That's something that you pay for, right? You have to prove 5 years worth of organic farming, and then they'll do tests on the land. But most everybody is growing organic nowadays. They're using natural ways, using predatory insects in order to keep other pests away that are damaging to the crops. So always just paying attention to where your wines are coming from and the people behind it are grown. I'm kind of getting off track here a little bit. Let's take a sip of wine. Has everyone already opened their bottles of wine? And feel free to turn off mute if you'd like. Any questions as well about what this wine is. So this wine comes from Spain. It comes from the region of Rioja. Anytime you see the name Rioja on a Spanish label, think the grape varietal Tempranillo. So you're going to sound like a professional at your next dinner party. You're like, oh, I'm sipping this Tempranillo from Spain. It's a Crianza level on this type of wine. There's 4 different levels in Spanish Rioja. You have Joven, which is extremely young wine. You have a Crianza. You have Reserva, and you have Gran Reserva. This wine's Crianza. The reason why I chose this wine to pair with Ricardo's chocolates is I thought it's a bright wine. Being a Crianza, the actual aging is a government agency overseeing what can be called all of these different levels. So with Crianza, you're 1 year in an oak barrel, and you're 1 year in the bottle before it can actually be released to the public. With a Reserva, you're looking at 2 years in barrel, 1 year in the bottle. Gran Reserva just has to be 5. Most likely it's going to be 2 years of aged in barrels, in oak barrels, 3 years going to be aged in the bottle. But some people would switch that out. And this isn't by any means, you can go well over that, just as long as those are the minimum standards. In fact, with this Arienzo Crianza, it's actually 18 months in French oak barrels, but neutral French oak barrels. So we're not imparting a lot of big flavors, like you're not getting a lot of cinnamon and nutmeg and heather and cedar box here. It's allowing the grapes to really speak for themselves by keeping more of a neutral barrel or a first fill barrel, barrels that have only been used one time before, but they've been used one time before. A new fill barrel is going to impart so much more flavor. Being that these are neutral oak barrels, you're getting the oxygen into the wine, which allows this wine to age and become beautiful, to reach its full potential without really changing what the flavor of the grape is that was grown on this vineyard by adding a bunch of oak and wood type of flavors. And by using a French oak barrel, the flavors that do come through are interesting nuances, but just very, very slightly. You will get a little bit of that cedar box hidden in the background. You will get a little bit of black pepper and cassis. I'll take you through the tasting real quick, if I may. Go ahead and just kind of swirl the wine around in your glass. You don't have to show me doing it because I've seen this go terribly wrong too. Especially you can tell a professional at a wine tasting or an inexperienced person because they'll be wearing a white shirt or a white dress. And I've seen it go wrong 1,000 times, I assure you. But I've also, you recognize the professional, right? So go ahead and swirl it around. What you're doing is just adding a little bit of oxygen to the wine. You're allowing this wine to wake up. It's been sitting in this bottle for years. This is a 2017. So for 4 years, or for 3 years, technically, it's been just sitting in a bottle inside of a dank basement somewhere, resting. Another fun thing to learn as well is if you've ever heard the name sommelier at a restaurant, like, oh, let's talk to the sommelier. See what they say? Sommelier, if you translate that, it's keeper or watcher of the sleeping bottles. So that's what it actually translates to. And that's what a sommelier does. It's a keeper of the sleeping bottles. So go ahead and just swirl it around. And then I want to get you to really sticking with the theme here of mindfulness. Smell the wine. And what do you smell? I'm sure we've all taken some sips already, but every time you open a bottle of wine, just remember it's bottled poetry. It's not just alcohol in a bottle to make your day feel better after having, a rough meeting or kids are running around. You need something to kind of relax you. Remember that for 5,000 years, people have been making wine. I mean, I try to remind new sales reps all the time when I see them, and they're so excited about the classifications and making the money and representing cool wines that are cult status. But just remember that you're the smallest cog in a wheel that is so much bigger than you, that has been going around so much earlier than you, and will be here for a long time after you. So just try to appreciate every sip of wine for exactly what it is and the amount of hard work that went into this and generations behind. This is 7 generations at Marqués de Riscal alone have been making wine. The whole center of the town is actually surrounded by the winery. And you'll find that a lot of times in Europe, that the entire town is centered around this, the vineyard and the winery and the families that created this juice and elixir of life. Just to bring you a quick history lesson, I know I'm probably running out of time as well. I'll talk to a plant if it'll listen to me long enough. But I'm passionate about wine. I love this industry so much, just as much as Ricardo with the chocolate and the plant restaurant as well. I've been taking care of that restaurant for a long time as well. And I'm excited to see that they were here and part of this gift package today, which thank you for that, by the way. Remember that when the Greeks and Romans were having their Bacchanalia festivals, wine was a way to help start the digestion process. If you were going to be having a 3-week-long dinner with dignitaries and families and to show how wealthy you were at the time or that you could do this, wine was part of digestion. So just as we started speaking earlier and then Amishi going into everything, thinking about, how you're responding to the world, how you're breathing, how everything interacts with you, wine is exactly the same way. The first sip of wine starts your salivatory glands in your mouth, which begins the process of digestion. And the first smell, just as Ricardo was saying too, with the chocolate. So it's beautiful. The nose here it's a bouquet of violet and heather, and it's what I get. Everyone's going to get something different. It depends what you've smelled. I recommend also going to the grocery store. If you want to become a wine tasting professional, walk around a produce department and just smell everything. It builds your vocabulary for words, exponentially. Then of course, feel that moment, recognize what you're trying, see what you get in there. Sometimes with wine can even bring up memories that you've had. It's very it's interesting in that way. Keep it in your mouth for a minute. See the warmth that kind of spreads out through your mouth. You get this dark cherry, cassis flavors. It's wine is a sense of time and place. I've talked to a lot of winemakers in the world, and they're just as passionate, but more so, in fact, that they'll say that it's almost like a time bottle that saves what happened in that year. if it's 2011 or 2001, you can taste history within this wine. It's that powerful and interesting. I want to be a watcher of this Leo. That's cool. I appreciate the comments as well. I've been kind of seeing them come through, so thank you. I hope you all have as much passion, as I do for wine and the bottled poetry that it contains.
Where can we buy it?
Well, honestly, this Arienzo, it's a pretty small production wine. That's why I brought it out. I can send that information out afterwards and get you a list. There's a few places in Miami, that I would recommend that are small family-owned wine stores. I like working with there's a wine shop that I've started working with recently in Avon as well. It's called Kana Wine Shop. It's in Coral Gables, just off of Miracle Mile. It's
you can get it off of Vecinos.
And that's what I was going to say at Vecinos, exactly right. Anything that you guys need as far as the wine shop, Avon has a pretty hefty ability to get some great wines through the site. And I know that she's just doing a pretty easy and minimal cost in order to get it delivered to your house also. So again, I'll open it up to questions if anyone's interested to talk about wine, or perhaps, my 10 minutes is up and we move on to the next person. But
can I jump in really quick? I mean, this is wonderful. Our program does go until 8, so I want to give people an opportunity to close. But as we did last year, several people mulled around after and kept drinking together and talking, and that's totally fine. If you want to do that, we'll keep the room open for people. But I also just wanted to let people go by officially closing the program and saying, if there's if you are thinking about how you can help us, other than donating, join our mailing list, keep in touch with us, maybe connect us with some schools, teachers, PTAs, social workers, different organizations that might want us to as a partner. Join some of our classes.
You should tell us.
And we'd love to see you again. We'd love to keep you around, and so don't be a stranger. A huge thank you to everybody. And if you wanted to, we can close the program, and we'll keep the room open though if other people want to keep drinking and talking. So that's fine. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you, Sandy, for organizing such a great event. And may you enjoy the wine, the food, the chocolate that was brought to you with ethics, which is that layer that's so important to attention. So thank you all. May you all be safe and well, and looking forward to seeing you in the days and months to come. So goodbye, everyone.
Thanks, Olivier.
Thank
you. Great program.
Thank you.
Hey, Alan. Thank you.
Hi, Alexandria.
Hi, Alex.
She's feeding me chocolate. How generous.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Oh,
Yeah, thank you, Justin.
amazing event. Kudos to the committee. Renee, Ian, you did an amazing job. It was fantastic. Beautiful.
Really nice wine.
Excelente.
That's my friend Beth, who said excellent.
Thank you, Michael.
You're
Love you.
glad you could join us, Beth. So glad.
Excellent. And the wine was superb.
It goes very well with the chocolate, by the way.
And the chocolate. Oh my gosh.
The
And
whole program, actually.
And the cheese.
Oh.
Wine went with everything.
Exactly.
Your daughter is beautiful.
Thank you.
With chocolate, you can try port wine. That also is a really great mixer.
Thank you, Olivier.
No, thank you, Ian, and thank you, Renee, for such a great, for running the committee and organizing such a great event. This has been an absolute pleasure and a wonderful evening. What a nice segue into the weekend.
Yeah, isn't that great? Beautiful.
Thank you, everyone. This was a wonderful evening.
Thank you for being here.
Hi, Valerie. Thank you.
Hi. It's so nice to see everybody that we don't get to see much anymore.
Exactly.
I'm gonna leave. Okay.
Hi, David. Hi, Adriana.
In person next year.
Hello.
And next year. Yeah.
Yes, yes.